of the Congressional Black Caucus, Joyce Beatty, also Melanie Campbell from Atlanta, who is with the Black Women's Roundtable, Tamika Mallory, so many others. Then when you look at an organization called the Black Panther Party that was vilified back in the day and now celebrated, the visuals for many would think that it was men, and we saw a lot of men holding guns. But guess what? The Black Panther Party that promoted trying to find cures for sickle cell, that dealt with free lunches and free breakfast for our kids before they went to school in the morning, which the government is now funding, and also health clinics, which the government is now funding, was 70% women. The Black Panther Party was undergirded by the power of women who said, I'm doing this because I want to lift my community. I love my community. It was done out of love. And Dr. Ritchie, in the book, I talked to Cornell Belcher, a dear friend who is a Democratic pollster for Brilliant Corners. And he said, when women serve, particularly in politics, it's about uplifting and love for the community versus our male counterparts. Unfortunately, it's about power and ego, if you will. I mean, that's sometimes it's hard to say, but
Listen, you are 100% correct. And I think it's in the way we are positioned as warriors or fighters or whatever it may be. We sometimes will affix ourselves to a frame that they created. But you're spot on about the various movements have always had this strength from Black women. Now I want to go to a dynamic and pose it to you and ask your feelings about it. We cover a lot of stories, obviously, on Indisputable about social dysfunction, racism, policy dynamics, things that adversely impact society. Well, Black women are the most underprotected demographic in the United States, period, all right? So when you have an emphasis like this, what happens? People that feel as if they were entitled to special treatment or they should have had a book written about them, they will start to come out against you. Why was it important to write this kind of book now?
I haven't really had anyone come out against me because this book is not about attacking. It's about my love letter to America, about the strength of Black women. I'm writing a book about what I see in the mirror. I'm showing up as a Black woman and I'm writing about Black women. And it's a love letter to America about our strength and how we stand and why we had to stand. We as a Black community, particularly with the population consisting of 52% of Black women in the Black community, we welcome everyone. We celebrate everyone, Dr. Ritchie.
Yes.
We bring everyone in, but when it's time for us to celebrate ourselves, we don't do it because we put ourselves last, because we bring everyone in, we celebrate everyone. And now in the midst of this moment, as we see a rise, as we see Black women now convening the table, not just bringing a folding chair that's always perpetually on our back, but now convening the table and sitting people at that table. It is now time for us to celebrate the women in the schoolhouse, the women in our house, the women in the church house, the women in the Supreme Court, the Black woman that's in the Supreme Court, okay? One of the 9. The Black woman, the woman who identifies as a Black woman in the White House as the Vice President of the United States, the Black woman who is the mouthpiece for the President of the United States, Karine Jean-Pierre. We celebrate all Black women because being Black and being a woman in America, like Shirley Chisholm said, is a double whammy. But in this moment, we still celebrate. And then as we pause to celebrate, we're gonna celebrate other people too, but it's time to celebrate. But in this moment, if we don't celebrate, we lose the momentum.
So well said. My daughter is a big fan of yours.
Oh.
And oh goodness. And you have been able to do something quite unique and I think trailblazing. You are able, without effort, I believe, I think it's natural for you. You are able to be authentically everything you are. You are authentically a Black woman. You are authentically a journalist. You are authentically not afraid. You are all of this in one package. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we start to negate the reality of our experiences, exposures, and environments, when we try to dismiss them in order to become something or someone else in another context. You have not done that. Tell me how that has made a unique pathway for you.
I can't show up in any other way. I come from a large family of agrarians, working class. And I'm telling you, my parents have gone on to glory, but I tell you, they would come out of glory and their rest if I showed up any differently. And my parents always told me to be humble and service is everything. I come from that kind of family. But one thing for sure, I show up the way I do because I want Black women and Black people to be seen. And this book makes Black women seen. And
I love it.
Community as well.
I love it. Black Women Will Save the World, an anthem. Make sure you get it. I'm getting my copy today. My dear sister, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Richie. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Welcome to Unbossed. We are so glad you are here. And guess what? This is Francesca Friday, baby. Yes, we got Francesca in the house. And I am in studio in LA today. It feels so good to be at TYT Studios, Francesca. I can't even tell you. And even better to have Francesca Friday. So we're going to talk about how the second richest man in the world had a temper tantrum worse than a toddler. I'm not even gonna compare him to a toddler, Francesca. That would be an insult to toddlers. And I love toddlers.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't do that. You don't want a toddler coming for you, so I'm not gonna mess with toddlers. And then we'll highlight some union champions. And later in the show, we'll crown a neoliberal. And don't forget to share, to subscribe, to tell all your friends and your frenemies. Unbossed is where it's at. So share this love. Don't keep it to yourself. Let them know. And so here we go. We're gonna come with Elon Musk first. Get a load of this.
His shop. He can run it the way he'd like. That's right. He can ultimately do that, VK. And so we'll all watch and see how much or how little he explains his rationale today.
Right. Thanks, Kevin. The amazing thing is when we're talking about banning suspensions and mystery, it's never been the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, forever. And so this is the first time there's even been some interest over there. The other thing I got to give him credit for this, at least it's not a shadow ban. Shadow ban has a mystery. Well, why is such and such only getting 3 retweets? Why is such and such not being seen? Why is this buried? He came out and announced it right away. Although I don't think it was the best move he's ever had.
No, not the best move at all. And what you just watched was Fox and Friends reacting to the hell that broke loose on Twitter last night. So last night, billionaire Elon Musk went on a suspension rampage. Why? Because he could. Here's a list of the folks who were suspended. You have Ryan Mack of the New York Times, Donnie O'Sullivan of CNN, Drew Harwell of the Washington Post, Matt Binder of Mashable, Micah Lee of The Intercept, Steve Herman of Voice of America, and independent journalists Aaron Rupar, Keith Oberman, and Tony Webster. And that's coming from a report from CNBC. Now, Elon claims that these folks were suspended because they doxed him. Let us be clear, doxing is never okay from any side. But what these journalists did basically was reporting. It was not doxing. So we see right now, he says some doxing rules apply to journalists as to everyone else. So he gets to define what doxing is and what doxing is not on his platform, obviously. So the doxing that Elon is referring to is the coverage around the recent banned account, Elon Jet. And this account posted public data of where Elon's private jets were flying, and it was public information. Meanwhile, Elon has reinstated the accounts of various kind of white supremacist types, those who tout hate speech. Let's put them up as well so everybody can see. We got the former president himself, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman, the Babylon Bee, Jordan Peterson, Project Veritas, Megan Murphy. Yeah, he gave all of them their accounts back, but then he decided he was going to suspend journalists. Elon did join a Twitter space, and he was asked the question about the bans, and he chickened out and left like anybody that is less than a toddler would do. He did a poll for his audience, which even his followers were in support of, let's put that up, of unsuspending those accounts. So here's his unsuspended accounts who doxed my exact location in real time. And you see where the people were. I'm sure he was not expecting that result. I was taught a long time ago, never ask a question that you don't have the answer to already, especially something like this, Francesca, in public, and it just really blew up in his face.
Like it has been this entire time. I mean, I'm honestly convinced that even the people who like Elon Musk are, first of all, way overrepresented on the internet because again, a lot of them are actually bots. This is a guy who says he wants to get rid of bots, except he wants to keep and grow all the ones that are just, thirsting over his every single bad joke, right? And so like I think in reality, and we saw this in the beginning of the week, in reality, in the real world, people hate your guts, Elon Musk. And the fact that you're a so-called free speech warrior who is using his purchasing of a platform, which is the total opposite of free speech. I'm just gonna buy something and then have all the speech I want and then own the conversation incessantly. That's not free speech. But we saw it again in person at the Chappelle show. People hate him. People don't like him. And yes, people don't want these folks, these journalists, to be banned. And finally, Fox and Friends, man, it's apples and oranges here. They're basically comparing bans of people who were openly targeting, harassing, and getting people killed, getting people's address leaked, right? See, they're comparing that to an account that follows Elon Musk's private jet when it lifts off and when it lands and where it goes. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Elon's private jet. And by the way, Elon tried to buy that person off. Yeah, months ago, he offered this kid $50,000 if he would stop tracking his private jet. And the kid was like, nah, I don't want that. I think it's kind of important information. It's interesting to know where you're going and where you're coming to, and also the amount of fossil fuels you're burning in the process. And so what did he do? He spent $19 billion just so he could ban Elon's jet by buying Twitter. What an idiot. So like, it's just, Nina, this is gonna get people killed. That's all I have to say. Like, it's funny, it's stupid. I'm tired of talking about it. But at the end of the day, letting all of these white supremacists and banning all the folks who are actually disseminating real information is gonna get people killed once again.
Yeah, it's wrong, and he knows it's wrong. And again, what the person put out was public information. He didn't hack anything. It was information that is out there in the public, where this man's jet was going to and from. And all of this just reminds me of the famous words of Lord Action: power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men. You better go ahead and say, Lord Action did say that. College workers are union champions. Yeah, we're gonna hop to some good news here. College workers are not only recognizing the ongoing union revolution, they're taking part in it. Check out this headline: college workers ride the national wave of union organizing, which is indeed a beautiful thing. It has me giddy right now. And like colleges and other occupations at universities and at firms, including warehouse workers, retail workers, Amazon workers, Starbucks baristas, and port truckers, campus groups are youthful. They're fed up with the corporate and capitalist exploitation, keyword there, exploitation of their labor, and respond by one of two ways: unionizing or leaving for other jobs. And that is coming from a publication, People's World. And then let's check out this alarming stat right now. Let's take a look at that. Average student employee salary is only $11.58 an hour. That's a yearly rate of $24,000 a year. That is not enough for people to live off of, especially you're independent adults and you're expected to live off of less than $25,000 a year. No, you can't do that. In addition to better pay, student workers, especially graduate students, are fighting for more benefits. Imagine that, the shame. What? They're fighting for better benefits, better work conditions, better wages in the United States of America, the hegemon nation of the world. Yeah, they are. Student workers' demands, here are their demands, and it sounds eerily similar to the demands that we see all working people who are organizing in this moment asking for: health insurance, workload limits, paid sick leave. Francesca, they asking for too much.
No, I mean, this has been going on for decades, right? Ever since the 60s and 70s on into, when I was going to college in the early 2000s and like early, every time grad students are like, hey, we are completely overworked. The university, which charges an exorbitant amount of money for tuition to these, incoming freshman students, of which they'll go into a lot of debt over. can y'all afford to pay us a little bit more? Because we have to go to school, we have to then TA a bunch of classes, grade a bunch of papers, make a living in this city. If we're living in Boston, we're living in New York, these are not cheap places to live in, pay rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need some help, and universities have been giving them this, the stiff upper lip. Ergo, the need for a grad student union. The problem is so many people look at grad students, they're like, oh, higher education, you're elite, you must have money. No, they do not have money. These are folks who are going into study. Yeah, they might be studying law, but it doesn't mean they're gonna be corporate lawyers. It doesn't mean that they're gonna, they might be studying nursing. They might be in med school. They're not gonna be making it rain. No, they're gonna be in debt. And so like these are the things that like, I'm glad that now with this wave of unionization, wave of class consciousness, that we're seeing grad students and college workers rise up along with retail workers.
Yeah, so am I. And it really is showing the worker solidarity. And Francesca, your point about how people make it seem as though if you're a college student, it's you versus non-college students. No, we're all in the same boat. I certainly did not come from a family of any wealth. As a matter of fact, working poor, and just take the other O and R off, just poor. And I didn't have a whole lot of money. My family didn't have money to send me to college. I'm a first generation college graduate. So absolutely, this is not an us versus them when it comes to college educated and non-college educated. Many people are still paying off student debt to this very moment. We encourage people to go to college to increase their knowledge base and to hopefully increase the amount of income they can make. And things have run amok from the cost of colleges and universities to people's dollar not going as far as it once did. And it is really good. It is good news to see that student unions have been on the rise all over the place in this country. And student workers aren't alone. About 120 new faculty union chapters have won recognition since 2013. And we know, because we talk about the rise of labor unions on this show quite often, where the American people are in their support of labor unions. And with more than 36,000 members, according to the National Center for the Study of Collective Bargaining in Higher Education and the Professions at Hunter College, over the last 10 years, just 10 years, the number of faculty union chapters at private nonprofit colleges has shot up more than 80%. This is indeed a beautiful thing. And let us remind you that whether or not you are in a union, when union workers rise up for better benefits, better work conditions, better wages, it does indeed have a ripple effect across the working class. We truly are all in this together, and everybody. Now I say this, Francesca, and I know people probably chuckle a little bit, but unless you got a sugar mama or sugar daddy or sugar somebody, you work for a living. And some of us may be blessed to be at the upper echelons of the working class in terms of our salary. Some of us are in the middle of that, and some people are at the bottom. But we are all working class. If you are in the 98%, if you can't afford to take off for months and months and months on end, if your life will come crashing down, if you miss 2, 3, 4, 5 paychecks, then baby, you in the working class. And so it is a beautiful thing to see across sectors, people unionizing.
Agreed. And shout out to the UC strike, UC workers who are currently on strike, and professors and students, grad students who are currently on strike. 5 weeks in, let's keep it going. Get that contract that you need.
Yeah, let's keep it going. Shout out to them. We'll be right back after this. Don't you go anywhere, and y'all can go ahead and phone a friend on this break.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize demonize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that Black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger Black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to the show. I have not needed a fire extinguisher just yet. I'm so proud of myself. So now we're at my favorite part of the show, at least the first half of my favorite part of the show, and that's the viewer comments. So let's go on in here. From our TYT members, Cena says, the senator is in the studio. Caps, all exclamation point. Yes, she is. She is in the studio, baby. Thank you for that, Cena. And on Twitch, Marshall, Nina's glasses game is always on fire. Francesca, baby, you just said that, didn't you?
Yes. Everyone was commenting behind the scenes about how fire the glasses are, and it kind of like works with what your hair is doing today. It's super cute. Okay. Nina always has the best eyewear.
Thank you. We might have to start a Nina eyewear line, let's do something.
I think so.
Let's do that. And on YouTube, super chat, Nika, make sure you talk about Nina when you can. She is for all people, and our people have to get what we deserve. Amen for that, Nika. I'm for all downtrodden people. You better say that. We are truly in this together. And we at Unbossed and the TYT Network, we appreciate all of our viewers, our subscribers, and our members. Thank you so much for your support of us, because we could not do what we do, boo, without each and every one of you. All right, Francesca, we are going into a WTF neoliberal moment. Democratic leadership is in a state of chaos, and it has me asking again, WTF neoliberals.
We will now kneel. Miss Cinema, no.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
That bumper gets me each and every time. So we go take a look at this headline. The worst job in Washington. Dems struggle to find Senate campaign head. Kristen Sinema's party switch is only making the hardest job in American politics worse. Hell, I had no idea that being in charge of that was the hardest job in Washington. That's wrong right there. But let's take a deeper peek behind the curtain of the struggle, shall we? Yes, we shall. Democrats are still up in the air as to who will lead the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, a job Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona made even more difficult with her decision to register as an independent on Friday. The party's already defending 6 Senate incumbents in seats former President Donald Trump won at least once, including 3 in states he won by double digits in both 2016 and 2020. And that is coming from HuffPost reporting. Senator John Tester from Montana was quoted as saying, nobody, and I mean nobody, I had to add that extra nobody wants to do it because it's a lot of work. I don't know who could do it. Obviously, Peters doesn't want to do it again. And again, that quote is coming from Senator John Tester. And the Peters he was referring to was Gary Peters of Michigan, who previously chaired the Democratic senatorial campaign. Tester then named off 3 more candidates who could possibly lead the organization. And the 3 people are Kelly Padilla, Ossoff, and there are others. Yeah, that's what he said. There are a few others, so there we go. Kelly, Padilla, Ossoff, and there are others, according to the senator. However, spokespeople for Senators Kelly, Padilla, and Padilla indicated their bosses do not have interest in the job. Padilla, a spokeswoman, said wants to spend time with his children. Kelly, a spokesman, noted has been running for Senate for 46 straight months and wants a break. A spokesman for Senator John Ossoff said the Georgian has 0 interest. So they're having a very hard time filling this position. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is trying to keep it together. I know it's so hard to find somebody to run this organization. Schumer and his allies seem to be squarely focused on trying to tie together the legislative loose ends of the lame duck session before the House flips to GOP control when the new Congress is sworn in on January the 3rd. His decision for who chairs the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee might slip into the new year. Woe is damn me. Republicans, on the other hand, have figured it out for now. Republicans are off to an early start. Almost a month ago, Senator Steve Daines and Rep. Richard Hudson, who won unanimous elections to take over the National Republican Senatorial Committee and National Republican Congressional Committee, respectively. Francesca, man, these sound like first world problems to me.
I mean, I think it's an important thing to understand that like 2024 is gonna be tough for Senate Democrats to defend their seats and win these re-elections. And according to this article, it may be a long time. We're happy that that obviously that Reverend Warnock won his re-election. That we've got a majority in the Democratic in the Senate. It might not be that way come 2024 and for many, many, many years after. And so this role is important, although really mucky in terms of like the amount of like what you gotta do, which is just fundraise all the time. And I guess I say that in muck, like you gotta get down and get your hands dirty. And we know who generally they fundraise from. But another thing that is pointed out in this piece is that actually more and more small dollar donations are what is driving these campaigns, especially Democratic campaigns. And that's because people are actually trying to speak to the people and not just doing their wine cave fundraisers behind closed doors. And so my question is, in this lame duck session, right? How can Democrats actually get something passed with the majority in the House and the Senate, right? We have this time. And according to folks like David Dayen of the American Prospect, they're saying, look, put something in the budget reconciliation, which cannot be filibustered. Yeah. Try and get something through, whether it's extending the child tax credit or re-upping it, right? It could be around climate, it could be around codifying Roe v. Wade. There's different things that can be shoved into that budget reconciliation. And then, and this is coming back around, then you'll have a party and you'll have a Senate that is in a better position to say fundraise from folks like us, from folks like the viewers who are watching now, because there's actually something that they've been delivering on. And so then having the role leading that charge won't be such a thankless, awful task. I guess what I'm saying is you gotta lead from the grassroots. You gotta give people something to actually rally around. Otherwise, yeah, who wants this job?
How about that? And several points you made that I want to compliment, which is, given the changing material conditions, right? Giving the people something they can feel, to quote some lyrics from the great girl group or woman group in vogue, baby, giving them something they can feel. And these politicians have not been doing that. And oh, by the way, making sure that people are making a living wage so that they will have some disposable income that then they could invest in electing more folks who are going to stand up for them and not just the owner donors. And when you said wine cave, it made me chuckle, Francesca, because we're talking about Pete Buttigieg and his little big wine cave fundraiser. I remember during the Sanders campaign that my colleague and I, Jeff Weaver, we wore these T-shirts that said winecave.com in the spin room. It was absolutely hilarious. The media ate it up. But yeah, having all those fundraisers and wine caves makes us assured of who they're gonna answer to if that's the way that they're raising their money. And perhaps to add to that, Francesca, perhaps the recent arrest of former crypto bro FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried has something to do with it. After Bankman-Fried's arrest, Washington seeks answers and they seek to distance themselves. I wonder why. And Bankman-Fried gave a lot of money to both Democrats out in the open, and then he confessed that he gave a lot of money to Republicans using dark money vehicles. And we must have real, true campaign finance reform in this country. Dark money should not exist. And two of Bankman-Fried's biggest beneficiaries in 2022 were the House Majority PAC and the Senate Majority PAC. No surprise there, which help elect Democrats to their respective chambers. Those organizations alone received about $7 million from him over the past 2 years, federal data shows. Yet neither group, along with the wrath of other Democrat and Republican organizations, and let me throw in individual candidates, would say Tuesday whether they plan to return the cash. Return the cash. I mean, return the cash. If you don't return the cash, you complicit as far as I'm concerned, and a whole lot of other people. And even more glaring, the continually growing disapproval rate of President Joe Biden. Let's put up this graphic. 56% of Americans disapprove of this current president. And Francesca, to another point that you were making, I mean, it's gonna be a hard selling for Democrats going into 2023 and also into 2024 if the tide does not turn. And just because Democrats had, just because there was not necessarily a red wave does not mean that Democrats are fully selling here. No. It was because Republicans are so bad that they didn't necessarily Republicans didn't necessarily take over. It doesn't mean that Democrats are so good. No. The working people of this country, they need these political parties to stand up for the everyday average citizen. They're not really doing that. And people are tired, they're frustrated, Francesca. I hear it all the time. I know that you probably hear it all the time too. Both of these parties need to give people something that they can feel and stop playing games with these owner donors. Oh, we moving right to the Flint water crisis. I want you to watch this from January, just from last year.
Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder is facing misdemeanor criminal charges of willful neglect of duty in the Flint water scandal. Thousands of children were exposed to dangerous levels of lead in their tap water back in 2014. Two former Michigan health officials face felony charges of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 9 people who got Legionnaire's disease. The former officials have all pleaded not guilty.
Yeah. Flint, Michigan, the canary in the coal mine when it comes to poison water. And now the residents of Flint have been dealt another blow. Check out this headline: criminal charges against former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder related to Flint water crisis to be dismissed. Underline, underscore, bold, put it in a message in a bottle and put it on a train. We riding trains these days in solidarity with our rail workers. And this is really a damn shame. The charges brought against Snyder were not properly brought and must be dismissed at this time. An order signed on December the 7th by Judge K. Beam said, the court order reverses a ruling that denied Snyder's motion to quash the indictment and dismiss the case. Judge Beam held that under Michigan's one-person grand jury law and a recent state Supreme Court ruling, Judge David Newblot did not have statutory authority to issue any misdemeanor indictments against Snyder. So basically, let me dress this up for you. It's a damn technicality. A Flint water problems can be traced back to 2014, when city and state officials switched the city's water supply from the Detroit water system to the contaminated Flint River in an effort to cut costs. Now I'm gonna have to pull out my fire extinguisher. Now I knew all of this because I've been talking about Flint for a long time, but this right here, put that back up, y'all. This right here, okay, this is it. To cut costs. CNN previously reported the decision exposed residents to extremely high levels of lead and prompted more than a dozen lawsuits against those involved. Government allowed this to happen to the residents of Flint, most of them Black, most of them poor, and then other folks from all walks of life. But the great city of Flint was left high and dry. And now we see on a technicality, this governor is not gonna have to answer for what happened under his leadership. Francesca, you take this away. I'm gonna have to go get my fire extinguisher.
I think we all need it. I mean, I think we knew this was gonna happen. When Rick Snyder, we knew that all roads led to Rick Snyder and the lackeys that he hired and the whatever company he decided to let take control of his government, which talk about WTF neoliberal, that's what neoliberalism is. And both parties play this game, which is I will cut costs, I will use my position in government, former business guy, former venture capitalist Rick Snyder, I will use my position in government to not just make money for myself, any kind of corruption schemes, but to actively try and like squeeze and squelch the citizens that I'm supposed to be responsible for by cutting costs anywhere I can and saving money. And I'm not reinvesting that into schools. No, I'm pocketing it. And then 12,000 kids can drink lead poisoned water. That's it. That is the game. That is neoliberalism in a nutshell, right? It is using your position in power to absolutely hollow out the state and to make everyone else suffer. And so we knew this was gonna happen, and we know these schemes continue to go on and on and on. I mean, you look at Jackson, Mississippi, and you think about, the crises there, right? You think about all these different crises that happen when it comes to water, electricity, and you know that neoliberal money grubbing is behind it all. And again, this blood on people's hands, it's a slow rolling murder, but it's murder nevertheless.
Neoliberal money grubbing. Francesca, gave me another thing to say with my bold underlined exclamation point message in the bottom. Neoliberal money grubbing. But you're right. And the fact that so many children, because we know the impacts of lead on children as they developed, and those negative impacts last a lifetime. So it's not like it's something that impacts them in one single solitary moment of their lives. It goes with them for the rest of their lives. And now people who were involved are just getting off scot-free. And I wonder why. Why? Because it was poor people. That's why. And Snyder's attorneys had the audacity to paint him as the victim. If you can believe that, sugar. Okay, can you believe it? Here we go. After years of desperate attempts at political persecution, veiled in amorous and unethical prosecutory efforts, we're pleased to see Judge Beam dismissing the faulty, flawed case against Governor Rick Snyder. The state has already wasted millions of taxpayers' dollars pursuing meritless misdemeanor charges, and this case should now be considered closed. You know what? Now, all week, I've been quoting Grandma. And Grandma would say, those attorneys have more nerves than a brass A monkey. All of those families, all of those children, all of the people impacted for a lifetime, and they got the pure unadulterated gall to say that it was meritless. It's a shame that only misdemeanor charges were brought up against this governor, that he's gonna walk away scot-free and all of his accomplices, and nobody is going to have to pay the debt of what has happened to the families in Flint, Michigan. You know why? Because they poor and they Black. That's why. They poor and they white. That's why. They poor and they Hispanic. That's why nobody's gonna have to answer to it. And these attorneys, see, this is the kind of stuff that we're fighting, both on the federal level and the state level. These people don't give a fig about the folks that they are hurting for a lifetime. The nerve of these folks.
But what if you use What if you attempt to use a $20 fake bill allegedly at a convenience store? What happens? What happens if you're driving without proper license plates? What happens if you have to be in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time? I mean, come on. It is, I'm looking here, there's, I believe one person was sentenced to a year of probation, 300 hours of community service. Man, if only for minor possession of marijuana across this country, you could just get, some community service instead of people who are still locked up for that stuff.
There it is, Francesca. And while you running off the list, imagine selling loose cigarettes and getting choked out and telling them you can't breathe, and then you end up dead. Or you're Sandra Bland in your car, happy about the prospects of your future, about to go to a job interview and everything, and you get stopped for a minor traffic violation, and then all of a sudden you never come back home. Or you're Breonna Taylor, you get shot to death in your own bed. And this man and his accomplices can get away scot-free. So you know what? Calling this a political persecution is pathetic and it is disgusting. I think Francesca and I have already laid that down. But what about the residents of Flint? That is the major point. That is the point that is being missed here. What's unethical is Rick Snyder's blatant complacency. Shame on this so-called judge and shame on Rick Snyder, really. But his life is gonna be all right, and the lives of his children, his children, they're gonna be all right. But the people in the communities of Flint, they're not gonna be all right. They are still dealing with this crisis. Let's put up this headline right here. Flint is still shaken by its water crisis, and residents are experiencing long-term mental health issues. Because when you are poisoned, that kind of stuff just doesn't go away overnight. It takes months and months and years, and in some cases, depending on how you were impacted, a lifetime. Oh, I sigh deeply, but thankfully, Michigan's Attorney General will appeal the decision. That will cool me off just a little bit. We are confident that the evidence clearly supports the criminal charges against Rick Snyder, and we will not stop until we have exhausted all possible legal options to secure justice for the people of Flint. You better go ahead on, Attorney General of Michigan, exhaust all resources to secure justice for the people in Flint. We'll be right back. I got to cool off. Don't you go anywhere.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Hello, beloveds.
I have a big announcement. I'm launching a new daily 1-hour show with the Young Turks called Unbossed with Nina Turner, starting October 17th. We are going to be taking on corruption in all of its forms, whether it's big money, big pharma, the injustice system, the establishment of both parties. All that we love is on the line. They keep coming for the people, not serving the people. Now we're coming for them. Anytime anyone, anywhere tries to take power from the people, that is where we will be together on Unbossed. And not only are we gonna take on these people, we're also gonna have a little joy while we fight. What is life without having some joy? The channel's already up, so go subscribe now, yes, right now at youtube.com/unbossed TYT.
Field goal here. It's time to switch to beer.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Do your best.
He's a little like...
Let's go!
Oh.
No one's happy now.
Give him another try.
Oh!
Wow. This is the weirdest game.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
And welcome back to the show. We're gonna read some viewer comments. Here we go. TYT members, Mountain Dragon. Damn, missed the first half of the show taking care of my horses. I love that, Mountain Dragon. Glad to be here. Much love, Power Turner. Keep up the good fight. Thank you, Mountain Dragon, so very much. And on Twitch, Super Bad Mama. What an amazing Friday lineup, Fran and Nina together. Indeed, Super Bad Mama, I do agree. This is Francesca Friday, baby. And on YouTube, Super Chat, Get Black. I love that name, always been on black. Neoliberalism is synonymous with the gradualism from the old days. You got that right, Get Black. And again, thank each and every one of you for your comments, for your viewership, for your support of Unbossed and the TYT network. We sending you all kinds of love. So we have interview today, and I am interviewing one of the baddest activist intellectuals in the land, Dr. Heather Gautney. And I fondly call her Dr. G. We were on the Sanders campaign together. Even before we started rocking the Sanders campaign, we both interacted with Senator Sanders in different ways. Dr. Gautney worked in the Senate on the budget committee for the senator. I helped lead Our Revolution, and then Dr. G came over there as director of Our Revolution for a while. So we've been rocking and rolling for a long time. Dr. G is an associate professor of sociology at Fordham University. She has authored academic books and articles. As a matter of fact, today we are here to talk about her new book, The New Power Elite. I am just elated. I could go on and on. Dr. G is credentialed like a mofo, and I mean that in a good way. She is very credentialed. She was a senior policy advisor to presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders and the co-chair of President Biden and Senator Sanders' education task force, and on and on and on. We, Dr. G, traveled this entire country together, most notably spent so much of our time in the great state of South Carolina, shaking it up, so much so that one of them representatives decided to jump into my race in Cleveland, Ohio. How are you, Dr. G?
I'm doing really well, and I'm just so happy to be here. I absolutely love this show. I learn something every time I watch. I learn something new.
I'm glad you love the show, and I love you, as you know. So a lot of things about your book really, are very intriguing to me. There's one point, you made several points, but one point about like the helplessness and the hopelessness that people are feeling in this country. And in particular, you laid out that a lot of the people that participated in the January 6th insurrection, that most of those people were just everyday average Americans with pent up frustration. They directed it the wrong way, albeit you do make it clear that there's some people who came there to kill, to steal, and to destroy, no doubt about it. But you do argue that some people were just kind of swept up, and it was this frustration that had been building over time because of how the power elites have ignored the needs of the everyday average people in this country, and how C. Wright Mills foreshadowed that this type of thing would happen in the United States of America. So Doc, can you go into that a little bit? And for some people who kind of say, no, all of those people on January 6th were white supremacists, all of them came there to make not just mischief, but to destroy. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about January 6th that kind of got me thinking was, well, the mainstream media did a lot of interviews with them, people who were there that day, and it struck me how many of them were former police officers or military or real estate people in real estate or whatever, and certainly, like you said, there were people there who were there to hurt and who were white supremacists, but there were a lot of people, and a lot of people in general, who are fans of Trump, who are disaffected in some kind of way, and who were relieved to see someone get on air and give out Lindsey Graham's phone number and make fun of Jeb Bush, and sort of thumb his nose at the establishment, because, and I try to lay this out in my book, that over the last 4 decades, the elites, political elites, corporate elites, media elites, have not served the material needs of everyday people. And history tells us that usually goes south, that nothing comes of mass misery. And in fact, reactionism and xenophobia and scapegoating are oftentimes the result of that kind of hopelessness. So, I was watching the show before I came on, and I love that you point to that. It's not just Elon Musk, right? It's not just the elites, but it's the system of exploitation and the powerlessness and the pain that everyday people are feeling. But we all want to be rich, we all want to be elite, or we all want to live comfortably at least. But are we willing to exploit people and lie to people and manipulate people and steal from people to do that? Most of us would say no.
Most of us would say no, absolutely. I mean, you're right. I mean, everybody has a desire to live a good life. There's nothing wrong with that desire. But if the vehicle by which you get to that desired space causes harm to others, causes harm to the environment, causes harm to the ecosystem, causes harm to people, both domestic or international, then there's something wrong with the way by which you are trying to get that wealth. And you point out, and I love how you say nothing comes of mass misery. In other words, nothing good comes of mass misery. But even in your book, and I'm just an excerpt here, people living in democratic societies have a strong sense nowadays that the world they live in is not of their own making, and that someone else is pulling the strings. Many have lost faith in the basic institutions like the legal system, the news media, and distrust their political leaders. And that really is what is fueling all of this outrage that actually reveals itself sometimes in very destructive ways. So you, Dr. G, have put a 21st century spin on what C. Wright Mills brought to the fore. And so why has the concentration of wealth, because you make that point too, increased, do you believe, since C. Wright Mills wrote his book rather?
Well, and that's something I also try to lay out, and it takes up a lot of space actually because it's not a simple story, and in some ways it is. You have really since the 1970s a sort of discrediting of systems of government in which workers could make an honest day's living for an honest day's work. There was a sort of social contract that was overcome really, and in the late 70s this accelerated, and then of course to today. And I would also, I blame the Democrats, and I have to say I'm no Republican lover here at all, but the Democratic Party was supposed to be the party to get in the way of that. They were supposed to be the ones who were on the side of workers, who were on the side of the poor. And, beginning especially with Clinton and the sort of new Democrat way, we have seen the Democratic Party sell out to corporate interests at nearly every step. And not just corporate interests, but also, the kind of the militarism and the sort of repressive approach to leadership. They've taken all of that on, and so we can't look at Trump and the Republican Party as the culprits of January 6th. We need to look at the entire system, and I see Democrats on MSNBC and all that all the time, and they're media people, but they're really Democrats, thumbing their nose or making fun of Trump people. And, that's exactly the type of stuff that, that makes people feel not listened to and disaffected. So I think, now I question, well, and the book sort of raises this, like, what is getting in the way of the Elon Musks of the world, or the Jeff Bezoses of the world, or the greater system in which they're allowed to exist, which is one that we, elevate the so-called free market as, to the status of an authority in our lives.
And acting as though the system as it exists cannot be changed. It was created, it can be recreated. It was imagined, it can be reimagined. It's not fixed forever, but you have these elites on either side who make it seem, they make everyday people feel as though, and in some cases more than a feeling, that the fix is in, and that is really what you tease out, and what Mills was teasing out too, and that kind of synergy, negative synergy, creates the kinds of results, not only that we saw on January 6th, but this sense of hopelessness. There's another point that you make in the book, and this book is so good. Let's put it back up, you guys. The New Power Elite by Dr. Heather Galtney. You must get this book. Y'all need to run out. Hey, it makes some good gifts, okay? Birthday, Kwanzaa. Look, it's some good gifts out there. Go ahead and buy the New Power Elite. But the concentration of power has increased, we know, as a wealth, and a point that you make in the book, and that Dr. Robert Reich and so many economists make all the time who are on our side. As most Americans register negative net wealth, just 3 billionaires control more wealth than the bottom half of the entire country. When tens of millions were suffering and dying at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, 745 US billionaires increased their collective wealth by $2 trillion over just 19 months. Underscore boldest, underline this, right? And as incomes of the 99% of the world's population went into a free fall, and more than 160 million pushed into poverty, the 10 wealthiest, all multi-billionaires, more than doubled their collective wealth. Okay, I just got to throw my paper up in the air.
Yeah,
Doc, please. Help us to. So, a two-part question here is, as we wrap this up, and I definitely will have you on again. How do we deal with that reality as you have laid it out, and so many others? Dr. Kelton, Stephanie Kelton. We got Dr. Robert Reich. We have so many economists who are on our side on this. How do we reconcile ourselves with those facts and also keep hope alive, to quote Reverend Jesse Jackson?
Well, Well, I'll say that my book is not particularly hopeful, but but I'm hopeful, and I think that there's a couple of there's a couple of pressure points. First of all, as a person who worked in the Senate and in presidential politics alongside with you, we know that there are certain policies that can be life changing for people. And even though those policies aren't going to change the entire system, they're going to improve the material conditions for large numbers of people, and they need to be fought for. So we can't be too progressive or too left wing. We need to, fight for the basic needs. The second is I think exactly what you're doing, what TYT is doing. We need alternative media. We need truth tellers. We need to be able to turn on the TV and not feel like we are being lied to, or not know that we're being lied to. So I think that that is even perhaps more important than the policy kind of stuff. And then, of course, as an academic, I think that universities should become, free spaces for the development of alternatives and real systemic alternatives. And there's no way that that's going to happen if colleges and universities remain elite spaces. We need free college. We need to have working class people in the universities, and those universities need to be places where people are actually thinking and considering alternatives to the system that we have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, Dr. Heather Gautney, who I affectionately call Dr. G, it is so wonderful to have you on Unbossed, and we want you back. Her book, The New Power Elite, you got to go out and get it. As she said, it's not particularly hopeful, but it will give you the foundational knowledge that you need to be able to fight the powers that be, baby. Yeah, we're going to keep on fighting the powers that be. Dr. G, sending you so much love, and give Glenn a big hug for me.
We will.
Yeah, so much love. I love Dr. G, fighting the powers that be. Here we go. We are going to remember Dorothy Pittman Hughes. So Miss Dorothy Pittman Hughes was an activist for communities in New York, and especially women and children. She founded the first shelter for battered women in New York. She recently passed away. She was a pioneer for Black feminism, and she died at the age of 84. Hughes toured the US with Gloria Steinem and founded the first shelter for battered women in New York. She was certainly a force to be reckoned with. The pioneering feminist Dorothy Pittman Hughes, a community activist who co-founded Ms. Magazine with Gloria Steinem and appeared with her in one of the most iconic photos of the second wave feminist movement, died at the age of 84. Let's put up that powerful photo of the both of these women, baby. They rocking that thing, rocking it hard. I mean, the spirit. I mean, if you don't catch feelings after looking at this photo, I just don't know. But them doing that together. Now, Hughes and Steinem forged a powerful speaking partnership in the early 1970s, touring the country at a time when feminism was seen as predominantly white and middle class. Steinem credited Hughes with helping her become comfortable speaking in public. This reporting is coming from the Guardian. In an email to Politico, Steinem paid tribute to Hughes's legacy, saying, "My friend Dorothy Pittman Hughes ran a pioneering neighborhood child care center on the west side of Manhattan. We met in the 70s when I wrote about the child care center, and we became speaking partners and lifetime friends. She will be missed, but if we keep telling her story, she will keep inspiring all of us." I totally agree with Gloria Steinem on that. And Pittman Hughes, her powerful words about economic development in the Black community. I believe that she personifies all of my grandmother's three bones, the wishbones, because she put hope into action, hope and dreams into action, the jawbone. She had the courage to create alternative venues to deal with racism and sexism, building a shelter for battered women to help change the way in which women and children who found themselves in these horrific situations were cared for, and the backbone. She stepped into the realm of feminism in the 1970s, which was dominated by middle-class white women. She guided and befriended befriended Gloria Steinem, and she stayed active in the movement, helping to give voice to Black women in this movement. Let's put up her quote. "If women could go to banks and get a business loan, the whole face of Harlem would change." That is what Miss Dorothy Pittman Hughes had to say about effecting change in Harlem. And if we take that beyond Harlem, she was just saying, if you give this type of money to women, they will do magnificent and magnanimous things to change communities. Because when you help women, you are helping communities. We want our condolences to her family, and rest in power and peace, Miss Dorothy Pittman Hughes. You know what I want you to do about this time? I want you to keep the faith, but more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time.